it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Good Friday evening, everyone. I am Matt Ohayon, the Hebrew Hammer, with you as usual on Fridays for your Friday edition of the Sick Podcast. Okay, I'm going to get it out of the way right now just to let you guys know this is a pre-recorded episode. We are pre-recording. It is currently 3:09 p.m. Eastern. So when we talk about the Stanley Cup final, I don't know when this episode's going to air. It might air at the usual time at 10, might air at 7 before the game. I don't know yet. It's still in discussions. So just so you guys should know that. So Stu, you don't hear Stu and I talking about the game as if it's not happening. And, at 10:30 p.m., someone scores and we're not even reacting to it. That's just going to be the nature of this episode. So yeah. All right. Now that that's done, let's pay some bills. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group has once again been recognized as one of Canada's top fleet employers for the 4th consecutive year. The prestigious accolade underscores their steadfast dedication to fostering a workplace of excellence and opportunity, much in part to their exceptional team for their unwavering commitment and contribution. Energy Transportation Group, top fleet employer. And by Bittt Tibi beer. Bittt Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for a hot summer's day. We've been having a lot of those with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores and C-stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. Playground, play lucky numbers at Playground. Earn your entries daily and return every Sunday for a chance to win a share of the $15,000 in cash prizes with a $5,000 top prize. And on July 28th, one lucky winner will take home $10,000 at the $30,000 finale. Visit playground.ca for details. And by Betway. Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct and go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 years or older and play responsibly. Okay, last one, I promise. Mekamoto is a Moto Guzzi, Piaggio, and Vespa dealer. I'm sorry for the Italians that are going to flame me that I have just totally mispronounced those two, at least the first two of those vehicles. And they have been around for over 100 years. On Thursday, June 27th, they're having an all-day open house. Pop in to do road tests. Mekamoto, 4398 de la Roche. www.mekamoto.ca. Okay. Hey, listen, this is the second Friday in a row the Habs give us some news. Bit of a weird thing that happened today. JF Houle, couple weeks ago, signed an extension to be the head coach of the Laval Rocket for a couple more years. Today, he and the Laval Rocket mutually agreed to part ways because he took a job in college in the NCAA. We also, of course, we're going to talk about the Stanley Cup final. We're going to talk about the draft. We're going to talk about potential free agents. We're going to talk about everything as we always do with our usual Friday guest, Mr. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, what's going on?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing just about as well as the Edmonton Oilers are because at first glance, you look at the series, you go, oh, they're down 3-2. They can't be doing so well. But man, the momentum is all on their side. And we're going to get to that series. But let's talk about first, because we actually spoke about JF Houle when he signed the extension a couple weeks ago. So bit of an odd case here. As I said, he signs the extension 3 weeks ago, and now he leaves to college.
Yeah, well, the key thing is the job at Clarkson wasn't available 3 weeks ago because the head coach there, Casey Jones, just announced last week that he was leaving. He's going to go to Cornell, where he played before. He'd been at Clarkson for 13 years. NCAA jobs have, it's a better job security than there are in the AHL, and I think that played into it. And also, Clarkson's where JF Houle played for 4 years. He was an assistant coach there for 7 years. He has a son who's going to university in Potsdam, the same city where Clarkson is. He's playing on the lacrosse team. He's also got a 7-year-old daughter. So for family reasons, this is just a really good fit for JF Houle. And it's something when he signed with Laval, this opportunity wasn't there. So kudos to the Canadians for allowing him to go, because they could have said, no, you're under contract. But this is sort of like, this is almost a job for life for him. Like, there's only been 12 coaches. He'll be the 12th coach in the history of Clarkson hockey. There's much more job security there. It's much more family friendly. You're playing a 35-game schedule. The AHL has those long bus rides, and the AHL is a tough place to coach. I mean, it's more of a development league than anything else, especially with Laval and with the rebuilding Canadians. You're judged more on how you develop players than you are on wins and losses. JF enjoyed his time in Laval. He mentioned during after he signed his 3-year contract extension with the Rocket that his goal was to coach in the NHL, like just about every coach out there. But this job with Clarkson, as I said, is just like a perfect opportunity for him and his family, and it was something that was just too good for him to pass up, and a good move for him. And as I said, I can see him coaching there for the next, unless an NHL job pops up, I can see him coaching there for the next 20 years, because that's just the way it works in NCAA hockey. It's not only about wins and losses in NCAA also, although there's more of a focus on wins and losses than there is in the AHL. It's also about developing young men to be ready when they come out of university to go on to whatever they're going to do afterwards, because most of those players won't go on to play pro hockey. So again, I'm really happy for JF Houle. I'm really happy for his family. As someone with 2 kids, my kids are 25 and 23 now, but I can relate to what this must have been like for him, especially with a 7-year-old daughter that he obviously doesn't see much during the season, and a son who's going to school, going to university right where they're going to be living. So just a good move all around. And again, kudos to the Canadians for allowing him to take this opportunity.
I agree. And that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that he took this job was, first thing was you always got to look out for number one. That's the first thing. So he did that, and good for him.
And
the other thing, well, there you go. And the other thing, you stated the reason. It's the first thing I thought of is tenure. University coaches, either in the States or in Canada, it's a big responsibility, but that is essentially, unless you're royally screwing up, the program, it's really a job for life. So that is a massive factor, because he's gonna get shown the boot in 3 years from now in Laval if the team's not performing. Well, way less of a high pressure situation now in Clarkson.
Yeah, well, Casey Jones, who's leaving Clarkson, as I just announced it last week, going to Cornell. He's going to replace Mike Schaefer, who's been at Cornell for next season. Next season, he's going to be his last season as head coach. He's already announced he's going to retire afterwards. So Jones is going to go there as associate head coach for 1 year and then take over as head coach. But Mike Schaefer has been at Cornell for 30 years. So that just shows you how NCAA coaching works. And it's another big reason why, when parents of kids are deciding whether they want to have their kid go play junior hockey, whether it's in Quebec, the Western League, or Ontario, as opposed to in the NCAA, especially in the Quebec League, the coaching turnover is crazy. So you send your 16, 17-year-old son to go play junior with a coach that you think he's going to be a good fit, and then the team goes on a 10-game losing streak, that coach gets fired and some other guy comes in. Whereas when you send your kid to university, the odds are that coach that you're sending him to play for is going to be there for all 4 years that kid is there. And I think that plays a big role with some parents, especially when they're deciding where they want to send their kids. And I'm sure JF Houle now at Cornell is going to help them. At Clarkson is going to help them with their recruiting when it comes to recruiting players. He was a big star there. He was a captain when he played there. Name recognition. I mean, his dad's obviously JF Houle. That's not why he got the job in Laval. I mean, he has a very impressive coaching record. But again, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a super easy decision for JF. I mean, after signing the contract with Laval, and Clarkson reached out to the Canadians apparently and asked for permission to speak with him, and the Canadians gave him the permission, and then one thing led to another after that. So again, really happy for him and his family that they get this opportunity.
The only thing is that, so that's the thing that a lot of people kind of got lost right when this news got announced, was that the Canadians had to grant permission for this to happen because he just freshly signed contract. Like the ink is still wet.
Less than a month ago.
So the Canadians had to grant permission. So maybe, they already kind of had a list of guys that could potentially replace JF Houle, because they were still in contract negotiations. Before that, who's to say he still wanted to do the job? So he could have. They had to have had a list. And now with Pascal Vincent and Guy Boucher available, who knows what that could lead to. Maybe those guys are going to be in the carousel of guys that are going to be interviewed and whatever. So we'll see. It's just another thing to add on to the list of to-dos for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, though.
Yeah, and also, I mean, John Sedgwick, who's the GM of Laval now, I mean, these guys are smart guys, and they would have done their homework, and they would have other people in mind. But also, I mean, you mentioned Pascal Vincent and Guy Boucher both getting fired recently. I mean, Vincent would be a perfect I mean, I can't see them not hiring a bilingual coach in Laval, which limits the prospects of who it might be. And for Pascal Vincent getting fired by Columbus, a long history of being a head coach in the AHL with the Manitoba Moose. But you got to wonder if other NHL teams might be contacting him also about whether it's an assistant coaching job or whatnot, or same with Guy Boucher. But those are the two names that right away pop up to the top of the list, I would think, of possible candidates just because of recent developments. But, Sedgwick and Hughes might have other names that they were already thinking about that we don't know who they are yet. So it'll be interesting to see. But I imagine they're going to make the move announcing who replaces them pretty quick, because the development camp starts July 2nd, I believe. It's right after free agency. So you're going to, usually the development camp was run by JF Houle the last 3 years. So usually your American Hockey League coach runs that development camp. So I would think that they would have somebody in place by then, or at least they'd like to have somebody in place by then. So it's going to be just another interesting thing to watch over the next couple of weeks with the Canadians as things really start to heat up before everybody goes on their summer vacations.
So I feel like the heat is starting to turn up already, just by proxy of, the past 2 years. It was at the draft 2 years ago when Kent Hughes made his move or his moves, plural, I should say, for Kirby Dach. And then last year, it was in the week leading up to the draft. I don't think it was draft day that he made his move for Alex Newhook. So kind of everyone, including myself, is kind of sort of expecting something to happen in the next 7 days, because we're literally a week away from draft day.
Yeah. The Newhook trade was the day before. The Dach trade was at the draft. The Pierre-Luc Dubois trade the other day. The NHL doesn't like teams doing stuff during the Stanley Cup final, but this final has dragged on so long.
Oh my God.
June. I mean, and I've been reading stories about, interest dropping off with Canadian viewers, and it's not surprising. We've had a heat wave here this week. I mean, people are more likely to want to sit in the backyard and have a barbecue or go for a swim in the pool if they have one than they are to sit inside and watch another hockey game. I mean, Pierre LeBrun's always pounding this drum, and I agree. Like, the NHL Stanley Cup final should be over by June, like June 1st or the first week of June. This is just way too long. And they had that 5-day break or 6-day break between the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final. That's hard to understand. And I think people just lose interest unless your team is in it. And I think it's something the NHL really needs to look into fixing and getting. And, and even it's almost not fair for the GMs of the teams in the final, because the final is going to end and they're going to have like 2 days when the draft starts and then free agency starts. So I don't understand why they continue to drag it on as long as they do. And I think it hurts their ratings. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the final Stanley Cup ratings are. But, when it's especially the heat wave we've had, when it's 40 degrees outside, I don't think, unless you're a really hardcore hockey fan, you're probably not going to go inside to watch a hockey game when the weather outside is nice and our summers are so short.
Well, it's just by proxy of, let's jump into the Stanley Cup Finals. It's just by proxy of, last Saturday was the first game that Edmonton won. I didn't watch the game. It was Saturday night. It's Saturday night, middle of June. I went out with friends because it was my friend's birthday. That's just what we did. And then, it just every 3 nights, it's too far between games. And, I'm seeing people say, oh, but the travel, but my foot, the travel, these are professional athletes. They do this for a living. And guess what? At this stage in the game, an extra 24 hours will not help you heal anything. You're going to be just as, if not even more sore than you were the day after a game. They're probably either way. They're probably dunking these guys in Tiger Balm or whatever else, other numbing cream. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. I think the only explanation could be is that they needed to coordinate with the NBA because of ESPN has both the NBA finals and the NHL finals. But even the NBA finals, I watched the basketball playoffs. It was so exciting. And then there was an 8-day break between the conference finals and the finals. And then they have 2 days in between every single game. It's like, come on, guys, you can't build up any momentum or any hype here.
Yeah. I mean, the players are flying charters and that also. The thing with basketball too, while the NBA is a winter sport, basketball is almost a summer sport, right? Just outside in the summer, and it's part of the Summer Olympics. It's not part of the Winter Olympics. So I think the culture of basketball, you're more leaning towards maybe watching games during the summertime. The other guys I feel sorry for, though it's hard to feel sorry for guys like me who get paid to watch hockey. But the media guys who've been traveling the whole playoffs, like they probably figured after the Oilers went out 3-0. I'm going home tomorrow. Before it's over, and now it's been like another week. Flying back and forth from Edmonton to Florida isn't and the media guys don't fly charter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure the guys who have been covering the Stanley Cup final, they're like, oh, every game is like, please let it end now. There's no cheering in the press box, but there's probably a cheering for this series to end at some point so these guys can go home and start their summer vacation. But again, I don't understand why the NHL just drags it. Either start the regular season a little earlier, eliminate an exhibition game or two, although Jeff Molson won't want to do that, and the other teams that are able to charge full admission ticket prices for preseason games, the NHL really look into. I mean, the season should end, like, to me, like the first week of June at the very latest. It should be over.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's just a matter of it's so funny because the irony is so glaring and present because I remember when it was the bubble playoffs and then that kind of delayed the beginning of the following season, the COVID season where there was a Canada division and those playoffs got kind of, this is the miracle on St. Jean, that was the conference finals. And all you kept hearing from the insiders on TSN and Sportsnet was, the NHL wants this to get wrapped up. They want to wrap this up quick. They want this season to be over. Yeah, it's as if they had a complete 180 and mind shift, and they never want it to end. It's ridiculous. For people my age, there's 3 or 4 things on any given summer night that will be ahead of the priority list of a hockey game.
Exactly. I mean, you go back to '86 when the Habs won the Stanley Cup. The last game was on May 24th. Huh. When they won the Stanley Cup,
what a dream.
When they won the Stanley Cup in '93, the last game was on June 9th. As I say, like that shouldn't go later than that. And it was game 5, I think, when the Canadiens won the '93. So if there was 2 more games, add 4 days, so like June 13th or whatever, it would have been over. And to me, it's just bad business too. It's bad business. I don't think it's, as I said, as the weather gets warmer, people lose interest in hockey and they start focusing on other things. I got a deck in the backyard and a barbecue, and I'm fortunate I got an above ground pool. And let's go inside and watch a hockey game when it's beautiful. Again, the summers are just so short that Canadians want to enjoy the weather. I mean, in Edmonton, obviously, they're going crazy there, and it would be the same in Montreal.
No, of course.
But if your team's not, the team you're rooting for or care about isn't in the final, I think you're more likely than not to either not watch the game or maybe tape it and breeze through it a little bit later. We're talking earlier about the game tonight. I'm going to a concert tonight. I'm going to tape the game and breeze through it when I get home or tomorrow. Just there's other things that become more of a priority than hockey as summer starts.
Well, that's it. It's Friday night. I had plans to go out with friends, but we said, it's game 6 that we could, we're going to be we could be seeing something crazy happen. So we'll go out after the game, or if it's a blowout in the second period or whatever.
And I foolishly thought game 6 would be last night, right? Because it's Tuesday. I said, okay, game 6.
It would make sense.
I got tickets for a concert Friday, and then I go, oh no, game 6, it's not until Friday. And then game 7 isn't until Monday, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. It's just, it's insanity. It's absolute insanity that game 7 would take place on June 24th. It's crazy to me, because that is the exact day that Arturi Lehkonen scored to send the Canadiens to the Stanley Cup Finals. And all the talk around the league. Oh, they want this to wrap up quick. They need to wrap up this final so they could get going on the offseason. But they just seem to have zero interest, and it makes absolutely zero sense to me. Absolutely zero sense.
I can't remember who wrote it or said, hockey's the greatest sport in the world run by some of the dumbest people. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, it is what it is. And I don't think it's going to change. And it's hard to understand why it won't change, because it seems pretty simple to fix it. Just start the regular season a little bit earlier. Start the regular season, near the end of September or last week of September, instead of waiting till sort of mid-October.
Yeah. Or you know what? Just you want to keep the same amount of preseason games, just push the preseason back. It's preseason. Yeah. You're not killing ratings on preseason anyways.
No. And the thing is, preseason is, like I said, not every team can charge regular season prices for preseason games, but the big teams like the Leafs and the Canadiens, I imagine the Rangers and other teams can. So I think the Habs have 4 preseason games at home this year at regular season prices when you're not paying the players, right? So that's a lot of cash in Jeff Molson's pocket and the ownership group's pocket when you're charging your season ticket holders have to buy the preseason games as part of their package. So it's a big moneymaker for the owners. So that's the reason why they'd be reluctant to cut back on preseason games. Then you get other teams like the Florida Panthers before the Stanley Cup run. I mean, they hardly played any home playoff games, so they didn't want to play at home, home preseason games. They didn't want to play preseason games at home because they couldn't sell tickets to it. So they'd rather go play like the LA Kings. That's why the LA Kings are coming to Quebec. Right, the Quebec government paid them $7 million or whatever it was to come play in Quebec, because if they played in LA with preseason games, the place would be empty. Yeah.
Anyways, enough about the logistics ruining the games, because the games are pretty good. The games are great.
I thought they were going to roll over and die. I really did. I thought.
So did I.
Okay, Edmonton, won the game, and that's it. Florida will go back home, but Connor McDavid, what a hockey player! I mean, he's. Win or lose tonight, I think Connor McDavid is the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. People in Edmonton have been so spoiled, right? They got to watch Wayne Gretzky for so many years, Mark Messier for so many years, and now they get to watch Connor McDavid. I watch him play, and the 2 steps and he's going full speed. That little tight turn he makes to get guys off the vision. That goal Corey Perry scored, I was laughing. Corey Perry at his age, it's like. He's smart enough to know when Connor McDavid is on the ice, just go to the net and hold your stick on the ice. Go hard to the net, put your stick on the ice, and that's the easiest goal Corey Perry probably ever scored.
It's funny because I said before the series, I don't know. Listen, Florida is. You look at the rosters. Florida is better in every way. They're deeper, they're tougher, they got way deeper on defense, more talented defense, they got the edge in goaltending, they got everything. But some guys are just different.
Yeah.
Some guys across all sports are just different. And that's Connor McDavid. And I said to all my friends, I did not continue to hold this opinion once they went down 3-0. But I said before the series, I don't know how you could watch what Connor McDavid did against the Dallas Stars in Game 6 of the conference finals and bet against this guy. I just don't get it. And, games 1, 2, and 3 happened. You can make the argument that Edmonton got a little unlucky because all the metrics are showing that they deserve to win those games. And now the tide has turned, it seems. The only thing is they know better than anyone, or I should hope they know better than anyone. They cannot be looking ahead to a game 7 right now. Like, they cannot think that this is automatic game 7.
No,
because Florida will step in there and just steamroll them if that's the case.
Bobrovsky can steal a game by himself, so as we've seen, the goaltending edge goes to Florida, although the last couple of games. But McDavid's one of the very few hockey players in history who single-handedly can make a difference in a game. We were talking about the NBA earlier. A star player in the NBA, LeBron James, can win a game or a series almost by himself because he's on the court the whole game, right? In the NBA, the star players play the whole game, or they might sit maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Connor McDavid is not on the ice more than he is on the ice. He's playing 25 minutes or whatever a game, but he's just so talented and so gifted. And he's one of those players, special players, that makes everyone around him better too, right? And him and Sidney Crosby, one of the big things they have in common, they're also the two hardest working guys out there. Despite the talent they have, they work their butts off every time they're on the ice. And when you have that combination of talent and effort and determination, it's something to watch. And Connor McDavid, the skating is just incredible, and the edges where he can turn and cut, and just what a hockey player. I mean, it's a treat. It really is a treat to get to watch him. The few times, 2 times a year when the Canadians play the Oilers, and he comes to the Bell Center. Ticket prices are expensive at the Bell Center, but that's a game worth the price of admission if you want to see something really special. And he's a special player.
Yeah, it's just really amazing what he's done the past 2 games. And frankly, I don't even think he's 100% healthy. Because
I don't think anybody is at this point.
No, but of course, nobody's 100%. But I think he's somewhere around, hovering around 60 to 50, because it's just, if you remember in game 2 or 3, he had a partial break. Matthew Tkachuk chased him down, and Matthew Tkachuk is no burner, and he's certainly no Connor McDavid when it comes to speed, and he could not get a step on him. And that's when I said, wow, this team is finished, because even Connor McDavid can't get a step.
Although Tkachuk was pretty quick when he stopped that empty net goal. That was a hell of a play.
Oh, that was a hell of a play.
We've shown that on highlight reels for years and years and years to come. But it's always interesting after the playoffs are over and the Stanley Cup's awarded, and then the news comes out about the injuries guys are playing through. I mean, you go back to Carey Price and Shea Weber, and the Canadians run to the final there in 2. I mean, Shea Weber was basically a cripple, but played his heart out. Same with Carey Price, was playing with one knee as a goalie and played his heart out. So it's always, I think back to when Brendan Gallagher in the bubble playoffs, when he got his face fractured or by cross-check, and these guys, the hockey players are special. They really, really are. I mean, the grind that these guys go through. And this to get through and get to win, and you win the Stanley Cup. It's 2 months. The playoffs started 2 months ago. This is like day 63 or 64, and until the final, they play every second day. It's remarkable what they're able to put their bodies through during the playoffs. It really is, and as I've said several times in the podcast, it's the hardest trophy in sports to win, I think, without a doubt. And it's just crazy that what these guys were able to put themselves through. And I'm sure when it's over, we'll find out from what Connor McDavid was playing through, and we'll go, "Wow, it's what he."
Well, he was able to put up 4-point performances with a broken arm or whatever it would be. That's
why the first round of the playoffs are often the best, right? Because the guys are banged up from the regular season, but the grind and the intensity and the ferocity in the playoffs is so much higher than the regular season. It's like another season, right? It's a different game. Mark Bergevin used to say there's players who can get you to the playoffs and players who can get you through the playoffs. And if you're a really good player, you can do both, right? And Connor McDavid is one of those guys who can do both.
Well, I was with a friend last night. We went to go. Funny you say that you had tickets to a concert and you thought they were last night, or you thought the game was going to be last night. I was offered tickets to the Alouettes home opener, and I almost rejected them, thinking that the game was that night, was last night. But I ended up going, and we're talking at dinner before the game, and he says to me, he goes, "It's absolute insanity that these guys have been in mental and physical war for 2 months. These guys are they're normal guys. They're not soldiers. They didn't go through training, but they are engaging in physical and psychological warfare for 2 months. And you could just, to everyone watching after the game, if you're going to watch the post-game press conferences, whether the teams whether the cup is won or not, pay attention to their body language, pay attention to the bags under their eyes, pay attention. I caught a glimpse of under Connor McDavid's beard, and it just looked like you could pull his skin and it would rip right off. That's how frail these guys look at this point in the season. It's absolute insanity what they're going through.
Well, Kirk Muller in '93 when the Habs won the cup, he looked like he had been on a hunger strike by the end of it. I mean, there was skin and bones. There was not much left of Kirk Muller. And I remember that same playoff year when the Leafs went to the conference final before losing to LA. Doug Gilmour, I remember reading stories out they were force feeding him pasta. Like they were sitting him down and forcing him to eat like 4 bowls of pasta just to try and keep his weight and his energy up because he was just drained. And I remember when the Oilers lost to the Islanders in the Stanley Cup final before they went on to win, there was Wayne Gretzky saying, they walked by the Islanders locker room after the game and like, guys had black eyes and stitches and they weren't even really celebrating. They were just sort of like, oh my, thank God it's over.
Yeah.
And the Oilers sort of realized, okay, that's the sacrifice you have to make to win. Like that's what you have. You have to look like that after the playoffs to be able to win. Like I can't imagine losing in the final has to be worse than losing in the first round or not making the playoffs.
Oh, of course.
It's got to be.
Of course.
Put your body through that for 2 months and then come up short. It must just be absolutely devastating. It's got to be worse than missing the playoffs. And the Canes have been on vacation for 2 months now. We saw it was Jake Evans got married in Ireland last Saturday. We saw pictures on social media of all his teammates over there. Brendan Gallagher's getting married also, and Josh Anderson's getting married. They've been on summer vacation for 2 months. These guys, to give up, I don't know, give us up the right word, but to not have those 2 weeks of vacation and go through all the physical pain and all the beating you go through, and then to lose in the final, it's got to be just crushing. And then you got a really short summer to get ready for next season too, right? You're not going to be so. It's as I said, it's remarkable what these hockey players are able to put their bodies through. There's no out of bounds in hockey, unlike other sports. Can't avoid a hit. The physical beating they take, and I think it's the greatest sport in the world. And the way these guys, what they put their bodies through, is just remarkable. And I've been watching some of the Euro soccer, and I know soccer fans get mad at me for saying this, but I find it so hard to watch when you see guys rolling around on the ground, taking injuries. Like seriously, But 2 different sports, 2 different cultures, and the hockey culture is, as they say, hockey players pretend they're not hurt, and soccer players pretend they are hurt. It's a different culture.
That you'll make a lot of people angry.
Oh, I know. Soccer people get mad at me, and I mean, I don't know why they allow the beautiful game. I mean, world-class soccer at the European Championship level is fantastic to watch, but that drives me crazy when I watch that. But for soccer, it's accepted as part of the game. They accept it as
well. That's it. It's
hockey culture wouldn't accept that as part of the game. I remember when Claude Lemieux, when he was with the Canadiens, one of the playoff runs, I think it was '86, and he was lying on the ice faking an injury. And the trainer went to go jump on the ice, and Pat Burns grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and pulled him back and made Claude Lemieux get up and skate back to the bench by himself. That just shows the difference. He'd had enough of the injury faking.
Yeah. It's just listen, there's things part of hockey that wouldn't fly. They don't fly. I mean, the bare knuckle boxing. There you go.
But for me, I don't get it, like an athlete rolling around on the ground, but that's part of the game. They're able to get red cards for it. And, I watched a documentary recently on Netflix on David Beckham and that infamous red card he got in the World Cup when he was young. And I can't remember who it was who said the guy that Beckham went at or whatever. He said, no, it shouldn't have been a red card. Like he embellished it big time. But anyway, that's another story. But I know for me, when I watch soccer and I see that stuff, I find it hard to watch.
Just not to go completely off topic here, but have you been watching the Euros at all?
I'm watching bits and pieces. Yeah, I mean, I've watched. Well, Scott, my family, my parents both came here from Scotland, and my dad.
Oh, okay.
My dad was an okay soccer player in his day. He was part of the Glasgow Rangers Youth Academy, and big soccer fan. And I played soccer as a kid. But when you watch this level of soccer, like go to Saputo Stadium, watch an Impact game, it's fun and they're talented. But this is at another level. Like it's like when you watch the passes,
on a string.
and the
It's
way
on
they
a string.
control the ball and the physical grind too in soccer. I mean, with these guys, I mean, I watched a little bit of the Impact game the other night, or CF Montreal or whatever they're called now, and it was like 40 degrees outside, and these guys are still playing soccer. Like it's remarkable what these guys are able to do. Also,
so that's what they're doing in this tournament, because there's a heat wave kind of everywhere in the world right now, and you just look at them and they're just drenched. So that's the time where I could kind of understand, okay, you're going to fake this injury. You're going to give yourself 30 seconds, collect yourself, get back on your feet, and then get back out there. That's the part I do understand. But anyways,
soccer is incredible athletes. You see after the game when they do the jersey exchanges, I mean, these guys have like 0.2% body fat on them.
And their VO2 maxes are in the 70s or whatever the scale is.
But you know what's interesting is like I covered, again, getting off hockey just for a second, I covered the Women's World Cup like 6 years ago or whatever it was in Montreal, and they don't fake injuries.
No,
like, the women don't lie on the ground and fake injuries. They get up, and it was refreshing to watch. I was like, the women don't lie on the ground, roll around pretending they're hurt like the men do, and it was nice to see. And like watching more of women's soccer since then, it seems to be more frowned upon in the women's soccer game than it is in the men's soccer game.
Because they know it dilutes the game, and it's frustrating for even the people who watch the sport consistently get annoyed with it, such as myself. But anyways,
Tony's gonna get mad at me for
anyways, let's get back to hockey. Let's close up on the Stanley Cup final here. Listen, we're both. This is, again, for those who are not aware, this is a pre-recorded episode where it's now 3:44 Eastern time. So the Stanley Cup final will not start for another 4 hours and 30 minutes probably. So we're behind, and who knows when this, I don't know when this episode is going to be aired, but would it, if you had to say, like, can Florida, can they claw their way back into game 7? Because I could see how Edmonton can't look past this game, but how do you stop this like downhill boulder that's just rolling at you?
Bobrovsky. He's key. If Bobrovsky can play like he did earlier in the series, otherwise, I think it's going to game 7. I mean, especially if the Oilers score early, and fans are in, it's going to be really interesting to watch this. I know if you saw the video of the Panthers owner after the last game when McDavid scored the empty net goal and throwing the water bottle at the wall, like that was
Bill Zito, that was the general manager.
GM, sorry, like he was like realizing, oh boy, this is looking not good right now. Like we're going back to we could have won the Stanley Cup on home ice. And it was interesting too watching that game, like seeing the stands packed. I mean, I've covered 5, 6, 7 games in Florida at that arena when the Canadians were there, and it's almost empty. And like half the fans that are there were wearing Canadian sweaters, and to see it the way it is now, full, and that's where you can see why he was frustrated. What a moment that would have been for the Panthers to not only win the cup but win it on home ice. But he's got to be thinking too, going back to Edmonton, the fans. That building in Edmonton is enormous. It's almost too big. Like the upper deck, you're a mile away from the rink. But to go back there and the crowd outside and Connor McDavid on a roll, and the Oilers believe now, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Down 3-0, it's okay, let's try and win a game. Let's not get swept. Okay, we won a game. Okay, well, let's try and win one more, and then you'll win one more. And if it goes to game 7, I'm not a betting guy, but my money would be on Connor McDavid. Like I think Bobrovsky's got to be the guy tonight. If Bobrovsky isn't the first star in game 6, I think we're probably going to game 7.
Yeah, because I just don't see. I don't see a way in this being one of those games where Edmonton puts up, by midway through the third period, they have 18 shots. I just don't see it going that way.
No.
I see them having 30 plus shots in this game. And Florida has just got, listen, credit to Stuart Skinner. He played unbelievable in game 6. In game 5. Yeah. Played unbelievable. Florida's got to finish those chances. You just got to find a way, because Stuart Skinner in the first 5-10 minutes, whatever it was, he set the tone for that game, because if they score on that one timer early in the first period, that game's done. I'm sorry, Edmonton, good run. You're not making history. They haven't done anything yet, but that's another story. But that's just the way the game was going to go.
Now, if you're a fan in Edmonton and you were lucky enough to score tickets for one Stanley Cup final game, and it was Game 6, after Game 3, you were saying, "Oh crap."
Yeah,
I'm not even going to see this. I'm seriously. You must have been saying, "No way, I'll make other plans that night." But I don't think even the most hardcore Oilers fan, I think it was 3-0, did not expect to see a Game 6 coming back to Edmonton. And good for Edmonton. I mean, it's hockey city, Canadian city. I said before this final started, I'd love to see a Canadian team win the cup again. And as I said, I honestly thought the Oilers were going to basically roll over when they were down 3-0. I figured with all of the season, that's what we were talking about earlier, all the grind you've gone through, everything you've battled, everything you've fought through, do you really want to go travel back and forth again? And kudos to them. They found it in them, and Connor McDavid leading the way. And Draisaitl hasn't really done a ton in the series either. So if he gets going with McDavid, we might see a Stanley Cup right in Edmonton.
The last thing I'll say on the Cup final is that the way I saw it going was, I'm not going to sit here and say I was expecting 8-1 in Game 4, but I did say it wouldn't shock me if Edmonton had a big win, kind of just because they're not going to get swept.
Yeah.
And then I thought in Game 5, they were going to get trounced 5-0.
That's it. As I said, I figured Game 4, you're the pride of an athlete. You don't want to get swept, right?
Yes.
You don't want to get all the way. First Canadian team in the final since '93, and you get swept. And with Connor McDavid. And McDavid had no goals at that point either, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And the pride kicks in. And I don't want to say there's a letdown with Florida, but you're up 3-0.
You kind of know your fate.
You're going back home for Game 5. If you lose it, it's sort of okay. If we lose, we're okay. We'll go home, and we'll probably win it on home ice. That's why the GM was so upset and threw the water bottles. I think he was probably thinking the same thing. But again, they as I said, I think they didn't want to get swept, obviously. But after that, it was like, okay, let's see, let's win a game. Let's just win a game, and then. Okay, maybe we'll win 2, but I don't think, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think they expect. I don't even think the Oilers expected to be going to Game 6 if they were being totally honest after Game 3.
Yeah, no, there's no way. There's just no way. But here they are, Game 6 tonight, or right now if this gets aired at 10 p.m. But so let's talk. Just finish up here with the draft, because we are a week away. The one thing I just keep thinking, and it happens in the NFL too, it's just, who's throwing out these smoke screens is what I want to know. Of, reporters just and beat writers just coming out here and going, "Whoa, Beckett Sinecki," just to throw out a name, he's rising up the board, and it's just no hockey has been played. The combine was 2 weeks ago. What do you mean he's rising up boards? That's how is this plan? How does this shaking out?
Well, the mock, as I've said before, I don't pretend to be a draft expert or an expert on these kids because I don't watch them play. My focus is covering the Canadians during the season. Celebrini's going to go number 1. We all know that. And then after that, all these mock drafts and that, I understand why people do them because they get clicks and people are hockey crazy and they want to read and see what's going to go on. But nobody knows, Celebrini's going number 1, and then everything after that depends on what's going to happen. I mean, most people didn't think the Canadians were going to take Slafkovsky number 1 when he got drafted. It happened, and then that sort of changes everything below that, right? Who's going to take who after that? So it's hard to Caden Lindstrom's a guy who would look great, I think, with the Canadians if he's available at number 5, but he might not be available at number 5. So it's sort of I don't try to pretend to be an expert. It's something I'm not an expert at. I read up as much as I can on these players and try and find much. But again, I don't watch these guys. You'll see them on TV at the World Juniors or the Under 18s or something like that. But a brief sample, I don't see them enough to make any kind of educated report on who's going to go second or who's going to go third, who's going to go fourth. There are other people who do that. Bob McKenzie's one of them with TSN, who spends a lot, especially now that he's semi-retired, spends a lot of time focusing on that stuff. So I always enjoy reading his stuff and his draft analysis. But nobody knows what the GMs are thinking, or who's number one on the Canadiens list, or number two, or who's number one on Anaheim's list. Stuff can change if trades are made, right? If trades are made the day of the draft or at the draft, it switch things around. So it's part of what makes the draft so fun to watch. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this guy's going to go here and this guy's going to go here and this guy's going to go there, because it's just total speculation. And but I understand why people do all these mock drafts, and I understand why they're so popular, because people are excited. Hockey fans get excited about the draft, and they have every reason to.
There's no doubt about that. It's I just wonder, I wish, I should do that. I should do this. I shouldn't say I wish someone. I have the idea. Is that I want to, if I had draft footage or if I had a look back at people's reaction on Twitter, X, Instagram, whatever, of when any team, not just the Canadiens, when any team takes player X. So let's take, let's take Juraj Slafkovsky. I mean, listen, it's only been 2 years since he's been drafted, but there you go. I remember people freaking out and people calling Kent Hughes an idiot. Yeah. And then he gets drafted, and now it's looking like the right pick. And then there's just all these things, because I got thinking about this, because in the NFL, Howie Roseman is the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's known as a bold GM who is so savvy with his moves at the draft and free agency and all these pinnacle moments for GMs to make big splashes. And frankly, in the draft, he does make a lot of moves to move up the board and whatever. And what he does, because he's known as a genius, is he takes the consensus top pick. Consensus top pick doesn't always, account to who's going to be the best at that position at that time. It's a consensus list of scouts. So if you internally think that, let's just go with it, Beckett Sinecki is better than Caden Lindstrom and Ivan Demidov, and all three are available, there's no point in moaning and, oh my God, I can't believe they took this guy over that guy, because you don't know. And frankly, most of the fans that do the complaining and the bitching, they're just like you and I. Yeah. They haven't watched
a little video here. They've read what other people, NHL Central Scouting. I remember reading something a while ago that if NHL GMs just stuck to the NHL Central Scouting list, like their picks would be better than sometimes what they go off the board. It means NHL Central Scouts that's all they do. I cover the Canadiens. That's my job. Their job is to follow the prospects. I mean, when Slafkovsky went number one, like who going into that draft thought Shane Wright was going to fall to number 4 and go to Seattle? I mean, for 2 years leading up to the draft, that's all we heard, right? Shane Wright, right? The Canadiens were like, tail for Shane, or whatever the thing was. That was the whole thing. The Canadiens, when they won the draft lottery, it was like, oh, we're going to get Shane Wright now, right? That was the Canadiens, and then he fell to 4. So, and as you're saying, now it looks like Slafkovsky was the right pick. But I would say you need to wait 5 years after the draft to figure out who is the right pick. I mean, Shane Wright, looking at his stats, 59 games this season with Coachella Valley in the AHL, 22 goals, 25 assists, 47 points. Not bad for a 20-year-old playing in the AHL. And in 10 playoff games, he had 4 goals and 6 assists for 10 points. So, 2 years from now, this podcast, we might be sitting here saying, why didn't they draft Shane Wright? They drafted Shane Wright. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? And even as Kent Hughes said with Slafkovsky, you expect Slafkovsky to have another dip before he makes another climb. And that's just normal for like a 20-year-old hockey player. So to me, it's still, Slafkovsky, the more you watch him, the more you understand why the Canadiens took him number 1. The size thing is obvious. The fact he's coachable, which we've seen, the incredible rapid improvement we've seen from him from game to game to game, working with Marty St. Louis and working with Adam Nicholas. And, Marty St. Louis saying early in the season, we're not going to throw the whole book at him. We're going to teach him page by page and chapter by chapter. And that's what they're doing. He's still only 20. But you understand now what the Canadian scouts, you really understand now what the Canadian scouts saw him, because he's looking like he can be a real legitimate power forward in the NHL moving forward, like a really strong, dominant player in the NHL. But lots of things happen, right? Young guys, injuries or off ice stuff, or there's all kinds of things that can happen, right? And so, like I said, we're 2 years in, 3 years down the road. I think you can make a decision of whether Slafkovsky really was the right pick, and there's no reason right now to believe he won't be. But Shane Wright hasn't even played in the NHL yet. He's played 2 games or 1 game in the NHL.
Very few.
It's more than that. It's a little bit more than that. It's I'm just looking at 16 games. Played 8 games in 22, 23, and 8 games last year. And the 8 games he played last year, he had 4 goals. So, it's there's drafting is not an exact science. It really, really isn't.
Well, so I found the perfect example. Now I don't have the reaction, but I do remember this year of it was the 2016. Let's confirm this on the Wikipedia page, because they have the central scouting of every year. So I'm going to go because Olli Juolevi was the first defenseman drafted. He was the consensus, or no, he wasn't the consensus, but he was the first defenseman drafted. He was the second ranked behind Jacob Chychrun. Second ranked defenseman. He was 5th overall in North American skaters.
Yeah.
Guy played 41 games in the NHL.
Yeah.
And and it was they made the right pick. They must have, because that's just the way it is. And then Chychrun fell all the way down to 16. The Canadians took Sergachev that draft as the second defenseman. And I remember, going into that draft, I'm pretending like I knew what I was talking about. I wanted the Canadians to draft Tyson Jost. He's a good, skilled center. The guy's he's carving out an NHL career for himself. But for a 10th overall pick, he has a career high 26 points.
Yeah,
you just don't know. You just don't know.
Well, I'm just looking at the 2016 draft here on Hockey DB. Austin Matthews, the most goals in their career so far. Austin Matthews, of course, number 1 with 368. Number 2, Matthew Tkachuk with 218, 6th overall. Number 3 is Alex DeBrincat, 2nd round pick, 39th overall. Mm-hmm. And then if you go down, you mentioned Jesper Bratt, 6th round pick, 162nd overall. He's got 129 goals in the NHL already. So it's there's always those guys that you just don't expect. And they come through for you. And it's what makes the draft interesting. And I always like when you see the guys who the scouts and that are smart hockey people, right? They know their stuff. They know but it's hard to predict what an 18-year-old is going to be like. And I always like sometimes when you see like a draft bust like 5 years later, and you go on YouTube and you find the video of when they drafted him, and you hear like, oh, this guy's a can't miss kid, and he does this and he does that, and he's got size and he's got speed, and he does. At that point, he did, right? He did. 18 years old, but trying to predict what an 18-year-old, never mind a hockey player, trying to predict what any 18-year-old is going to be like in whatever walk of life when he's 23 or 24. A lot of things can happen, right? And a lot of other walks in life, you don't become an instant millionaire either, which can throw some kids off track also. So it's always like every kid drafted in the first round of the draft is a heck of a hockey player. Every player drafted in the NHL who's selected is a good hockey player. You don't get drafted. It's Marty St. Louis was never drafted. A lot of guys who were never drafted went on to become star hockey players. But first round picks are all really talented, but not all of them pan out. And that's just the reality of the business. And the thing is, when you miss out on your first round picks as many years as the Canadians did, at some point, how much of that is bad luck and how much of that is bad scouting and development?
Right.
But when you miss 6-7 years in a row with your first round picks, you don't pan out. That's how you end up as the worst team in the NHL. It's a big reason why you end up as the worst team in the NHL, and that's why the Canadians ended up where they were.
Well, so it's funny because I was explaining to this friend that I was at the Alouettes game last night with why missing on a first round pick in the NFL, no matter where you're drafting, is a big deal.
Well, they play right away.
But that's it. So I kind of gave him this analogy of, let's say you are you finish 25th, you get the 25th overall pick of the first round. So you did pretty good in the playoffs, but you just didn't win it all.
Yeah.
So you're going to draft let's say, offensive lineman, because the current offensive lineman, his contract's up and he's demanding way too much money. So this guy is the heir apparent to your offensive lineman, and you whiffed on him.
Yeah.
Your line is now garbage,
yep.
and you're going to be garbage. Your team's going to feel it for many, many years to come. So it's even more delayed in the NHL because a lot of first round picks, it's 3 years till they touch the ice, till they touch NHL ice, I should say.
Yeah.
So this is just my little PSA for everyone, that watches is so into the draft, and it's just wait to pass judgment, because remember when Reinbacher was drafted last year, and everyone was freaking out. Oh my God, it's the wrong pick. He sucks. He's this, he's that. He's not even the best. Next year, there's better defensemen out there. Well, our clip came out last week where we said, we would trade Reinbacher, or you would trade Reinbacher for Zegras. And people were freaking out. How could you do that? How could you do that? But
we've never seen Reinbacher play a game in the NHL, and we've seen Zegras have 2 23-goal seasons.
But just everyone just wait to reserve.
Well, exactly. And if they did make that trade, maybe 2-3 years from now, I look like an idiot, or we look like idiots for saying that would be a good trade. But that's life, it's you don't know how these guys are going to develop. But one of the reasons there's hope for the Canadians moving forward now, just looking at their draft history here. So last year, Reinbacher, okay, we don't know yet, but it looks like, right shot defenseman. The Canadians think very highly of him, solid all-around defenseman. The second pick in the draft, third round, Jacob Fowler, potentially could be the goalie of the future. Their third pick, Florian Jacki, Arber's brother, who scored 34 goals last year in the OHL after scoring only 13 the year before. 2022, you got Slavkovsky in the first round. Philip Messar, so we still don't really know much about him, right? He started the season in Laval and then quickly got sent back to junior. Then Owen Beck in the second round, right? Looks like a hell of a hockey player. Lane Hudson in the second round. Right now, they look like great picks, right? 2021, you got Logan Mailloux in the first round. As controversial as that pick was at the time, he's looking like he can be turn into potentially a solid NHL defenseman. Fifth round, Joshua Waugh, right? The guy who looks like some potential. 2020, you got Caden Gooley in the first round. 2019, you got Cole Caulfield in the first round. Jaden Struble in the second round. Raphael Harvey-Brown in the seventh round, right? So there's, then you realize why the Canadians ended up where they were, because now you start 2018, you got Kotkaniemi, first round pick. 2017, Ryan Poehling, first round pick. 2016, Mikhail Sergachev, first round pick, traded for Jonathan Drouin. 2015 draft, Noah Juleson. Injuries factored into him not becoming the player he wanted to be. 2014, Nikita Sherbak, first round pick. 2013, Mike McCarron, first round pick. 2012, Alex Galchenyuk, first round pick. 2011, Nathan Beaulieu, first round pick. 2010, Jared Tenorti, first round pick. 2009, Louis LeBlanc, first round pick. It goes. That's why they became as bad as they were. And then as good as the drafts look from the last 3 or 4 years is why there's hope right now that this team can develop into something. Those players still have to prove themselves long term, but there's reason for hope now after so many years of just bombing out on the first round draft pick.
The next thing I'll say as a final PSA before we sign off is I'm going to go out on a limb and say when Kent Hughes makes a trade for a 23 or under player, and it ends up being like the Newhook trade, because everyone freaked out. Again, everyone freaked out when he traded a first and a second round pick for Alex Newhook. Is that the NHL is a funny sport because there's a hyper fixation on draft picks and prospects in this sport. And I don't quite know where it comes from, where these unknown commodities are more valuable than known commodities. And maybe that's based off of potential, but Kent Hughes is going to make a trade and he's going to give up a first round pick. It's probably going to be Winnipeg's, and he'll probably have to give up a second round pick or 2. Don't freak out, because they're getting a known commodity that's going to help the team today rather than those 2 guys who may not touch NHL ice ever. And if they do, best case scenario, it's in 2 or 3 years from now. Best case. So just reserve that judgment for when you see this player, whoever this U23 player will be, that he will acquire.
Well, another important thing I think fans need to realize with these trades, like for Doc and Newhook, and I agree he's going to do another one at least like that this season, if not something bigger, if not something even bigger than those two trades, is that they realize Canadians fans' patience will wear out.
Yeah.
So if you just keep drafting 18-year-old and hoping they're going to develop in 3 years, you're the Buffalo Sabres, right? Your rebuild's going to go on forever and it might not work. So Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon are being patient, but they're also trying to speed up the rebuild process when they can, right? That's why they acquired Doc, a guy who's already got NHL experience. That's why they acquired Newhook, a guy who's already got experience. That's why I'm saying Trevor Zegras, a guy who's got NHL experience and offense. And they need forwards who can provide offense, and they're not easy to find, right? Especially young ones. So when you have one that's available, and yes, there are some risks with the Zegras from what you read and what you hear about him, but you got to take risks sometimes, right? And how often does a kid like that become available at 23 years old or whatever he is to come to your team? So I think you got to take a risk once in a while with stuff like that. And they're trying to speed this along because I think, as I've said before, I think they have one more year of fan patience.
Yeah.
If they miss the playoffs next year, I think fans will be okay. But if they finish 28th or 29th again, I think fans are going to start saying, okay, enough of this stuff. Like when is this team gonna not suck, right? When is this team not going to be in the draft lottery anymore? And the Canadians, Gorton and Hughes, realize that. So that's why you get when these trades that factors into it. That factors in. That's when people say, "Oh, you're crazy. Why would you trade Reinbacher?" Well, because it might speed things up just a little bit. They're not looking to speed things up and mortgage the future, but they're trying to just speed it up a little bit. And they have a lot of young defensemen already, but they don't have a lot of forwards who can produce offense. And when you get a chance to get one, I think the Canadians realize they have to, or this rebuild, as I've said before, if they don't get more forwards who can provide offense, this rebuild is not going to work. It's just not going to work. You can't put up third and fourth lines night after night, sometimes even second line that have almost no chance of scoring goals, right? You can't just rely on Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky to do everything moving forward. Kirby Dach, we still don't know about his health. I mean, if he can't stay healthy per season, he'll obviously improve things. And Newhook last season, when he came back from his high ankle sprain, showed what the Canadians saw in him when he made that trade, right? We saw that he was really good the last half of the season and playing center. So again, they're trying to speed it up a little bit here and there, and that's why I'm sure I'd be shocked if the Canadians keep that second first round pick this year. And depending what happens ahead of them in the draft, maybe they even trade the fifth pick, depending on who they might be able to get if it can speed up the rebuild. If whoever's available at 5 isn't, I mean, it would have to be a really big trade, I think, to give up the number 5 pick. But it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me.
It wouldn't shock me either if 4 forwards went. If 4 forwards went in front of them, or 3, and it's the 3, and it's 3 of them, because one of them is for sure going.
Yeah.
But if 3 forwards go in front of them, I could see them trading the pick as well. But hey, we'll see. It's only a week away. It's only
1 week from tonight. 1 week from tonight. Looking forward to it.
That's it. So we won't speak before then, and I don't even think we'll speak that night because the Sick Podcast will be live.
Yeah, Tony's going to be there. Good for Tony. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, so you got to keep Tony under control.
Tony at the Sphere.
Unbelievable. Oh, this guy.
That could be the title of a movie.
I swear.
From the cameras, follow Tony around. The Tony cam.
I swear, Sammy and Agnello, they treat him way too well. Stu, have yourself a fantastic weekend and stay dry this weekend.
All right, you too.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. Listen, I'm not going to be talking to you next week because, like we said, Tony's going to be live from the Sphere with producer Shane. Producer Shane's going to be doing the draft cast as well from there. So lots of fun stuff for the Sick Podcast coming up. But Tony will be back on Monday. So until then, we'll speak to you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Laval.tb. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.